My name's Ben Carter. I'm 29. I live alone in a small apartment on the west side of town. Quiet place. Nothing fancy. I work as a senior accountant at a finance firm that's got more letters in its name than employees. I've never been one for drama, and up until a year ago, I kept my head down, did my job, and helped out when I could. I grew up in a family that treated stability like a bank account, and I was the deposit. My older brother, Nick, was always falling apart in slow motion, and Mom and Dad just kept asking me to catch the pieces. I did, 4 years. Because I thought that's what love looked like: sacrifice, silence, solving problems nobody else wanted to deal with. But everything changed after Emily. We'd been married 3 years. Bought a condo together. Built what looked, from the outside, like a solid life. We had matching coffee mugs. We shared passwords. We made weekend plans. I thought we were the kind of couple people pointed to and said, "Yeah, those two have it figured out." I was wrong. It started small. Emily got distant. Not rude, not mean, just somewhere else in her head. She'd go to the gym and come back glowing, but not from the workout. She'd giggle at her texts when she thought I wasn't looking. She stopped asking how my day went. Stopped noticing when I stayed late at work to pay for the vacation she said she needed. Then one night, I came home early. My client meeting wrapped ahead of schedule, and I figured I'd surprise her with dinner. I walked through the door and heard her laughing in the kitchen. Not just laughing, giddy. I stepped in, expecting to see her on the phone. But she wasn't. He was there. His name was Jesse. Some guy from her gym. Tight shirt, gym bag slung over one shoulder, like he lived there. She tried to explain. Said it wasn't what it looked like. Said he just stopped by. But Jesse looked at me like I was the interruption. Emily sat me down that night and told me the truth. It had been going on for months. It started as flirting, she said. Then drinks after workouts. Then nights he'd drive her home. She said she didn't mean to hurt me. That she was confused. That she felt invisible. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer. She just looked at the floor. I packed a bag. Walked out. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just left. Because when someone tells you who they are, you believe them. And Emily wasn't my partner anymore. She was just another person who saw me as a utility, a steady hand, a safe bet, a backup plan. I moved into a rental and didn't tell a soul. Not even my parents. They were still too busy rerouting Nick's latest disaster. At that point, I had nothing left to give. But the thing about families like mine is they don't notice you're bleeding until you stop showing up to fix the plumbing. Sunday dinner came around. Mom opened the door with that tight-lipped smile. "You're looking thin, sweetie. Are you eating enough?" Dad nodded from the living room. "Hey, bud." Nick was already at the table, scrolling through his phone like he was allergic to eye contact. I knew the rhythm. When Mom went syrupy and Dad went silent, it meant they were about to make a decision and expect me to carry it. After a fake conversation about the weather, and a casserole that hadn't changed since high school, Mom folded her hands and said it. "Nick's going to move in with you for a bit. Just to get back on his feet. No question. No discussion." Like she was offering me cookies. I smiled. "Of course," I said. "If it helps Nick get back on track, why not?" They all relaxed, not realizing I was lying. I didn't live there anymore. I hadn't in weeks. I'd sold the condo, the one I bought with Emily, and moved without telling them. Not out of spite. But because I finally understood, if you keep offering yourself up, people will keep taking bites until there's nothing left. The texts came Monday. "We'll bring Nick's mattress Saturday. He's excited for his own space." I didn't answer. Because they weren't talking to me. They were talking to the old Ben. Saturday morning, I left the house early. Walked around town. Let the messages pile up. When the fourth call rang through, I picked up. "Ben," Mom snapped. "There's a guy here. He says he lives in your condo." "Yeah," I said. "He does. I don't live there anymore." "You didn't tell us?" No one asked. I imagined the silence that followed. Nick with his bags. Dad with his keys. Mom with her wounded tone. Later that night, they showed up at my door. I opened it halfway. "You found me," I said. Mom looked rattled. "We didn't think you'd actually be gone." "It's my apartment," I said. "You said Nick could move in," Dad barked. I said, "If it helps Nick, why not?" I never said where. Nick stepped forward, arms crossed. "This is petty, Ben. You're punishing us." "No," I said. "I'm protecting me. Something I should have done years ago." Dad's voice dropped to that old threatening tone. "We're not leaving. You owe us this." I pulled out my phone. Dialed. 911, "What's your emergency?" "I have people on my property who won't leave. They weren't invited. They're not on the lease." Mom's face cracked. "You're calling the cops on your own family?" "I asked you to leave," I said. "You used to be kind," she whispered. I didn't flinch. "You used to ask before taking." When the officer arrived, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt done. The next day came the voicemails. Then the Facebook posts. Mom posted a photo of Nick as a kid, wrote about how I'd abandoned the family. About how I'd turned my back in their time of need. Hundreds of likes. Comments from relatives I hadn't heard from in a decade. So I posted one thread. Screenshots of the $2,000 transfer for the mortgage. A photo of the lawyer bill for Nick's DUI. My name on the car loan. A message Nick once sent calling me a boring robot because I wouldn't let him crash with me. Then one line. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped bleeding for them. I turned off my phone. Sat in the quiet. Made tea. Chamomile. Not for sleep. I didn't need help sleeping anymore. Just something warm to hold. I stepped onto the balcony, looked out over the city. Cold air wrapped around me, but it didn't sting. It felt honest. Down below, someone walked a dog in a coat too big for spring. A neighbor 2 floors down waved. I waved back. It was small. But it was real. Inside, I turned off the lights one by one. No family portraits. No drama. Just quiet. Just space. I didn't feel proud. Or bitter. I just felt free. It didn't stop there. The calls kept coming: Mom, Dad, numbers I didn't recognize. People I hadn't spoken to since college were suddenly worried about me. Like I joined a cult instead of just saying no for the first time. I went to work. Came home. Ignored my phone. Every now and then I'd check social media to see what the latest version of the story was. Apparently, I'd become a heartless success story who abandoned the people who made me. One of my aunts said she was praying for my soul. Another asked in a comment if I was having a breakdown. I deleted the app. A week later, I ran into Nick. He was standing outside my building, arms crossed, put up like some guy in a bad crime show. "Really?" I said, stepping around him. "We need to talk," he said. "You don't live here." "I don't want to fight," he said, voice quieter now. "Just explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "That you and Mom and Dad plan to dump your mess in my lap without asking?" He shrugged. "I thought you'd get it." "That's the problem, Nick. You knew I'd get it. You all always assumed I'd say yes. And for years, I did. Even when it cost me." He didn't have much to say after that. Just stood there. I told him goodbye. He didn't follow. Later that night, I sat on my couch with a beer, staring at the walls. They were still blank. No memories hung up. Just empty space. And it felt good. A month passed. No one called anymore. No more text bombs. No more cryptic family posts online. Just silence. The kind that used to scare me, but now felt like a blessing. I started walking more. I'd leave work, grab a sandwich, and just stroll. No destination, no podcast in my ears. Just the sound of traffic, my own footsteps, and the city humming around me. It was during one of those walks I bumped into Claire. She used to work 2 cubicles over. We'd talk sometimes, mostly about the copier jamming or the weather. Small stuff. But she'd left a year ago for another job downtown. We caught up. She asked how I'd been. Divorced, I said, blunt like ripping off a bandage. She blinked, then nodded slowly. Me too. 6 months now. We ended up sitting at a coffee shop until it closed. No romantic sparks or dramatic realizations, just two people talking without expectations. We started meeting once a week. Then twice. She didn't try to fix me, and I didn't pretend I was fine. One night, she said, "You ever feel like the people who were supposed to love you only did when you were useful?" I nodded. Yeah. All the time. She smiled. Me too. It was the first time I didn't feel crazy for thinking that way. One Friday, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. "Nick's in trouble again. He needs a place to stay. We're at our wits' end." I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "I hope he figures it out." Then hit send. That night, I made dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, a glass of wine. I ate slowly, like time didn't matter. I didn't check my phone again. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying anyone else's mess. And the world didn't fall apart. It just kept turning. And so did I. The weeks after they left were strange, but not in a bad way. Just quiet. Still. Like the kind of silence you hear in the woods when even the wind decides to rest for a minute. It was the first time in years that my life didn't feel like it was orbiting someone else's crisis. I kept waiting for the guilt to show up. That old familiar weight in my chest. But it never did. Not like it used to. Instead, I started to settle into something I didn't know I was missing. Peace. I rearranged my furniture. Not because it needed it, just because I could. I bought a new set of dishes, the cheap kind, all matte black. I started cooking again, which surprised even me. Nothing fancy, mostly eggs, frozen stir-fry, grilled cheese, but it felt good to stand in a kitchen and not wonder if I was cooking for someone who didn't care if I was tired. I even joined a book club. I didn't say much, mostly listened. But still, just sitting in a room with strangers who didn't expect anything from me? That was new. One night, while walking home from the corner store, I ran into a woman sitting on the steps of our building, fiddling with her keys. Her name was Lena. She just moved into the unit across the hall. We got to talking. Just neighbor stuff at first. Mail mix-ups. Parking complaints. But she had this calm about her, like she didn't need anything from me except a conversation. That alone made her feel like fresh air. Over the next few weeks, we started having coffee in the hallway. Sometimes we didn't talk much. Sometimes we stayed out there until the sun came up. I didn't tell her everything, not yet. But I told her enough to let her know I wasn't new to hurt. She nodded. Said she'd had her own version. She didn't ask me to fix it. I didn't ask her to explain it. We just let each other exist. One night, she looked at me over her mug and said, "You seem like a guy who finally said no to the world." I laughed. Took me long enough. Lena smiled. Good. The world doesn't say thank you when you bleed for it. And that stuck with me. Because she was right. I'd spent my whole life bleeding quiet, trying to be the dependable one. The safe one. The backup plan. But I wasn't a plan anymore. I wasn't a fixer, a fallback, a wallet with a pulse. I was just a man, finally living on his own terms. I didn't reach out to Mom. Or Dad. Or Nick. Not because I hated them. But because I was learning that love without boundaries isn't love. It's servitude. They made their choices. I made mine. And for once, my choice was me.